Good evening, Malaysia, and followers from around the world. Tonight, the topic is about our country's obsession with titles, in particular, to be a Dato or a Datuk Seri, to the point that Malaysians are prepared to pay for titles. That's the perception and the allegation. Whether real or not, we do not know. But now we even have fake Datoks and also people with dubious doctorates. But we will come to that later. But first, please welcome Tan Sri Thye, a retired politician, a social activist, and a legend in Kuala Lumpur and in Malaysia. Okay, and of course, my good friend Tan Sri Johan Jaaffar, a very distinguished journalist, tokoh wartawan, author, playwright, and a poet. So we have two very important personalities here tonight who knows about what this the tradition is all about, and they will talk about it. Now, the hot news over the past 1 week is that fake datos have been arrested with 3 people, including a married couple, by becoming the first Malaysians to be arrested under the Offences Relating Awards Act 2017. At the same time, police have also acted against fake justice of peace in the same state. In Kelantan, a fake Dato and a fake Kelantan Royal was also arrested. Now, this is the first time that such arrests have been made in Malaysia following the enforcement of the act. Now, of course, that in the past we have heard about people who have even pretended to be a sultan and was arrested. Now, before we dive into this subject, perhaps that Saudara Johan and Saudara Lee, any of us, could talk a bit about the brief history of the Royal Awards. To my little understanding, I believe that this is a very good tradition, very old tradition, dating towards the days of the blackened Sultanate. Johan, what do you know about this, the history of this?
Yeah. First of all, I'm glad to see Tan Sri Thye with us tonight. I have been going through some materials, literature on the history of the Malay Sultanate and Malacca Sultanate. And one of the most important book was written by the late Professor Kukai Kim. The title of the book is Malay Society, but there are other books as well pertaining to this. You see, with the fall of Malacca Sultanate in 1511, basically did not demolish the socio-political tradition and construct of the Malays. You see, the concept of the Sultan, the Raja, and the King as the very foundation upon which the Kerajaan or the Negara is established has survived to this day. Basically, prior to our independence, with the coming of the colonial masters and the beginning of the colonial administration, there has never been a total break in the political culture since the Malacca days. In fact, even during the Japanese occupation, the monarchy basically is still intact, so to speak. But of course, basically, the Japanese who came here, they have the respect for their own royalty, their own king. Within the monarchy, back then, there is a pronounced political structure. And below the Raja, there are the Orang Besar and the various Orang Bangsawan and Orang Istana, Orang Kenamaan. These are the so-called Orang Bergelar, people with titles. And some of them, many of them were commoners. So they were given position of power. And to give credence to that position, they were given this title. Some were officers of the court, some were territorial chief, and others. And there are a maze of titles given to these people. And basically, this is part of the feudal system that we inherited, Dato' Sri.
Johan, of course, when we talk about the Malay rulers, it does not mean just Malaysia. It has to include the southern Philippines. And my research shows that the southern Philippines during the 15th century, especially in the Sulu and the Mindanao area, they used to have titles given too. But of course, in 1987, the Philippines Constitution reaffirms the abolition of royal and noble titles in the Philippines. So with that rule, it means that basically that, well, if anyone in the southern Philippines, if they claim to be sultans, and if they want to give out titles, and if Malaysians wants to pay for it, they will know that there's no value in it. Of course, we know also in group.
Not only that,
Yep.
but there are still instances whereby there's these stories about Sultan in Sumatra, for instance, giving out title. So it happened. It's nothing new, basically. Yeah.
In the case of Sumatra, you mentioned, Indonesia, of course, has been a republic, has long abolished these titles. But Brunei still do give out titles, right?
Yeah.
They have this, what they call it, and I think it's used in Brunei and in Sarawak. They call it Pehin, right?
Yeah, Pehin.
Yeah. Okay, now, so I need to talk a bit about this. You know that why is it the titles are so important in Malaysia that many people aspires to be a Dato or a Datuk Sri, and they're willing to go to all lengths to be a title person?
Well, I would like to offer some opinion in this.
Okay.
But before that, I would like to congratulate the Tan Sri Johan Jaaffar for having given some historical background, with regard to this question of giving out titles and so on. And of course, it is rich in this history, and it's dated back to many years ago. Now, I think it's very important that we discuss this subject today, because I think basically this has been something that has been much discussed in public. And you have asked a very relevant question, why are people so obsessed with titles? Now, as far as I'm aware, there are a number of reasons for this. I think firstly is because these people who are obsessed with titles or who crave for these titles believe that by having such a title, they will be able, to feel more confident psychologically, and so that when they go around, asking for help or when they need some assistance in some form, the very fact that they own a title, they believe that they will be entitled to some priority, they'll be entitled to some attention, and they are perceived as VIPs in society and so on. And they also want to be treated with respect, and they believe that by having a title, they'll be given respect. But they must also realize that respect is something that must be earned, and not just by having just a title. Yeah. And I think some want titles, as I said, just because they feel they can pull their weight around, and this is something which they are longing for, and this is the reason why they even go to the extent, of finding out ways and means on how they can possess these titles, and they are even prepared, to buy them. They are prepared to offer, some form of this gratification to people who are able to give them such just titles. But I would say, I think overall, these are some of the views as to why people are so obsessed with titles.
Johan?
Yeah, you see, I guess this is part of the Malaysian dream. This is something that people look forward to. It is not just having a position in society. It is not just about having a big house or fancy cars, but you have to have something. So basically the title is almost like the ultimate status symbol. You see, I have no problem about that, but the only thing is, as Tan Sri Thye has pointed out, there are people who abuse their position. They believe it is their birthright to ask for certain privileges. They are entitled for certain things, that kind of thing. So you see, and the other thing is about the media obsession with this title. So you read the newspaper, when someone is charged in court, it is always a Dato or a Tan Sri who is charged in court. It's not just a particular name or a particular person. So I think it is the whole mental construct of Malaysians today that have been basically partly responsible for this obsession about titles. In fact, interestingly, you wrote about about titles, I think about in 2000 and something, 2017. you wrote something about the problem with titles. You're not mistaken. There was a piece that you came out with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think RealChunWai himself has written a number of articles that appeared in the Star.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to add further here that to a very large extent, I would agree that there are many Malaysians out there who would like to be, as I said, to be honored with some form of title, but it is important that they must realize that it must be something that is deserving.
Yeah.
Now, the fact this remains that there is nothing wrong with people, being given titles and so on. And maybe, as I said, for a large number of them, they have been given titles because of the fact that the government, it can be the federal government or it can be the state, it can be the sultans, the tuanku and so on, who want to bestow them with titles in recognition of their services, maybe to the society, to the community and so on. But it is the point that Tan Sri JJ has pointed out, and that is the abuse of such a privilege. And of course, as I said, over the past months and even well before that, we have seen so many media reports about some datos or Dato Sri or even this Tan Sri, who are being investigated, for various offences. And even I think this today, if I'm not wrong, there was a report, I think, in the Star, where I think the MACC, is investigating, a suspect, with the title of Dato Sri. So for the offences which are related to money and laundering, and so on. So I think this is something which I think we have to take a very serious note. And I'm of the view that, for example, if these either Tan Sri, Dato Sri, or Dato, or whoever they are who have been given titles, if they have been charged, for example, if they are convicted, for example, I think all these titles should be removed because I feel that they don't deserve, to carry on with those titles. This is actually what I feel.
Yeah. So Tan Sri, so there are 2 points here. One, of course, is the fake datos, which we have laws now to track down and charge fake datos. Then you have another group, the real datos, but we have the questions here been raised as to whether they have contributed enough, whether they have done enough. That means they have not worked for their titles. Essentially, that for some reason or another, they become dato because they want to be dato. Now, of course, by right, as you say, that there must be some form of vetting. I think in some states, they're very particular. When there's a committee to go through their list to say that, well, whether this person, he deserves to get a title, they run through with the police and they run through perhaps with the MACC and to see whether they are really deserving of that title. Now, because if these committees really carry out their duties, then they will be able to really check the background of these people. Because in the past, we have seen people with criminal background who become datos. And in one particular case, this person actually even did a video of himself in his dato, what do you call it, regalia and what do you call it, a uniform. And after that, he's showing off his gangster kind of activities. So you wonder, how can this happen? Obviously, that some states are very loose and are not doing the committee, if there's such a committee, are not vetting the work correctly. Now, of course, the question of whether they are bankrupt even. Tan Sri, what could be done to trace people who have a questionable financial situation, they're bankrupt? What can be done?
Now, my answer is this. I fully agree that those who are supposed to be given titles and so on, I think it is very important that they must go through a very stringent screening the process. There must be very serious vetting, in regard to the applicants, looking into their background, looking into their academic qualifications, looking into whether they really have contributed, in one way or another to the betterment of the society, betterment of the community, nation, and so on. Now, besides that, when you talk about the vetting process, I think it is just not enough to be screened by the police. But I think now there are other enforcement agencies that have come in, especially agencies that are related to integrity. And I think it's very important that we must have, MECC is involved. And then we also have to also check from this Bank Negara, with regard to their status as whether they have been declared bankrupts and so on. They have a system known as these CITOS and all that. See? So all that I think is unnecessary. Now, in respect of those that, for example, they qualify, they qualify to be bestowed either by the Yang Pertuan Agong or by the various the sultans or by the governors and so on. Now, after even they have obtained the awards and so on, I think it is very important for them to bear in mind that they must always uphold integrity. It is very important because why? Because if even though these titles are not bought, even though they are very genuine, even though they deserve them, but after having secured those titles, I think it is very important that they must ensure that these titles must always, be held in high regard. And the only way to do it is to ensure that they themselves are people, who will not commit any forms of crime, who will not get themselves involved in any form of unhealthy activities, and they must always maintain this integrity. Now, with regard to the group that who buy these titles online, and there have been such cases, in fact, they have been reported in the media and so on. Now, this is something which I feel that the authorities must really crack down. I think especially those online syndicates and so on, they are abusing this internet, these facilities to sell all these awards and so on. So I think they must be this crackdown and action must be taken against them.
Yeah. You see, the other thing is, I believe that the prerogative of conferring these titles are not just that of the istana, but also by the political masters. You see, and they are the one advising the rulers. Datuk Sri Wong and also Tan Sri, back in 2002, on the 2nd of December, I wrote a piece in the New Straits Times entitled "Need for Stringent Measures to Bring Back Honor to Datukship." You see, back then, as I was going through, you see, in 2001 alone, there were about 650 individuals who were conferred Datukship in that year. And the most number came from, of course, Pahang, 105, Selangor, 90, Malacca and Perak, 60, Penang 59, and Negeri Sembilan 55. You see, for the last 15 years, if we take an average of 600 individuals given a Datukship a year, we are talking about at least 11,400 new Datuks, until now. Now, you see, one of the things that I believe we should look at is the possibility of setting up a quota. For instance, the federal government have this quota for tunship, those getting tun, not more than 25 living tun at any one time, for instance. And then for Tan Sri, probably about 250 living Tan Sri at any one time or something like that. And so there is also a quota for Datuk as far as federal is concerned. I guess, you see, as we all agree, there is nothing wrong. We are all basically believe in this system that we inherit. We have no problem with that, but basically to bring back the honor to Datukship. Not only that, the article that I wrote in 2002, recent as the 2017, not too long after Datuk Sri Wong Chun Wai wrote his piece, I came out with another piece, bring back the honor to Datukship. It's almost like the same title from two different newspapers. This one I wrote for the Star. So you see, the discussion, the conversation pertaining to Datukship has been going on for some time, But as we all understand that there are problems here and there. You see, I want to make a confession here. 4 months into my job as the chief editor of Utusan Melayu, in 1993. I was offered a Datukship from a state. I was perplexed, bewildered, so to speak. I said, what have I done to the state? What have I done? But of course, at that point of time, there was this election, the UMNO election and everything. So it looks like almost everyone that is in the media were offered that kind of thing. I mean, Datukship. You see, of course, I declined. I've contributed nothing to that particular state. And those days, among the editors, we have some kind of a gentleman agreement among us. So we are not accepting any Datukship from any state. If we were to be conferred of any pingat or bintang, it has to be from the federal, because we believe that our contribution, if any, basically is to the government.
I think that that's right. It is also be the question, beside this criteria, I think that the question of age is also necessary.
Yes.
I mean that someone who is in their 30s should not be a dato. Okay, it's really non-deserving. Why should young people who have hardly out of their puberty, I would say, be given a Datukship? Okay,
what have they done to the particular state?
I think I share this Chunwai's view on this. I think the age factor should also be taken into the consideration, because I happened, there was about a few years ago, I happened to come across a friend who when I met, at a function, I was surprised to see that the father is a dato, and even his children, two of his children are dato, and the children were only around the age of about 26 or 27. You see, I mean that is something which these are certainly will create an issue with regard to whether the people are deserving or not, whether they have done anything. So I think the age factor is something to take into account, and also I think with regard to JJ's comment that there must be a quota, there must be a number that must be also taken into account, because I noticed that there are some states, for example, they are very generous in giving out all this Datukship and so on, whereas there are some other states which are very stringent, that I know. So I'm of the view that if you have too many Datuships given out in a particular year, I think that is something which can also create some kind of this public doubt. They may ask some questions as to why so many, especially those that are not deserving and so on. Now, to come back to the issue of this question of fake datos or the genuine datos, I think it's important that we must have some kind of just a registry of all these titles and all. And if we have just a registry, and I believe this is something which is being looked into by the Ministry of Home Affairs, so that the public will be able, to check out, if, for example, they have come across any names and so on which they are in doubt as to whether they are really genuine datos or not. I think they can make a check through this registry, and by going into the website and so on, they can find out as whether it is genuine or not. So I think all these things need to be put in place in order to gain the respect of the public, to gain the respect of a cross section of Malaysian society with regard to this question of awards and titles. And as I said, the most important question JJ has put it, and that is with regard to making it honorable. This is very important. I mean, honor is something that cannot be bought. Honor is something that must be earned. And it is on this basis that I feel that we can still go on with the giving out these awards and titles, by the federal government or the state government. But I think it is very important that must take into account, especially those who are involved in nominating names, and those who are involved in vetting the process. I think they must be very mindful of all these steps that must be put in place in order to gain the respect of the public.
Thye, you're a justice of peace. Justice of peace are appointed and not awarded. What are the roles of the Justice of Peace?
Well, the Justice of Peace is actually appointed under the Subordinate Courts Act 1948, and according to the Subordinate Courts Act 1948, the Justice of Peace in Peninsular Malaysia shall have and may exercise within the state for which they are appointed such powers not exceeding the powers of a second-class magistrate, as may be conferred upon them by any this written law. But the fact is this, that as far as I know, there are many JPs who have been appointed. And for example, in the state of this Selangor, in fact, I'm also one of the JPs that was this appointed under Section 98(2) of the Subordinate Courts Act 1948. And as I said, although we have the powers to act as second-class this magistrate, but anyway, we never had the opportunity of doing so. Yeah. So in short, I think what we are doing is the fact that we are playing our role to look after the welfare, the peace of the citizens or these societies, to ensure that they uphold the law and the rights of peace. So this is in short what I have to say about JPs.
Okay, we're now coming to the last part of our discussion for tonight. Yeah. We have done fake Datukships. We have done the Datuks which don't deserve to have their titles. Now, we come to the question of people with questionable academic backgrounds, academic title, doctorates, okay? Doctorates honorary by right should have a bracket on that.
Yes, yes.
Some do not put the bracket there. Some get doctorates from universities which are not credible or are accredited. That's another obsession with titles.
Yeah, I think Johan, I think I can say something to this, and I think I'm qualified to say this because I have personally received 6 honorary these doctorates.
So we have to call you doctor 6 times.
But for your information, I never use any of this because I personally feel that I don't deserve it because I never worked hard. I never go to the university to earn that doctorate. Well, it is an honorary doctorate that was bestowed upon me, and I would disregard it as some kind of recognition to my public service and so on. But I think you are right, RealChunWai, because I've seen some name cards being given out by some people, and then when I look at the name card, they put Datuk Doctor or something. Then out of this curiosity, I decided to check up, from someone, just in the university. And they told me that there is no such a person that have ever been given just a doctorate. So it could have been an honorary doctorate, but being an honorary doctorate, you must put a bracket, a bracket, DR with the bracket. Because if it is not a bracket, then you are not, as I said, if there's no to the bracket, you are deemed to have earned your doctorate when in actual fact you have not done so. So again, it's a question of integrity. Really a question of integrity. If people who have been given, what do you call it, an honorary doctorate, but he decided not to put the bracket, and he wanted to perhaps to show his friends that he's very well qualified, very well educated to the extent that he earned a doctorate.
Johan, one final word from you before we wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. Basically, I think universities give out honorary doctorate to people whom they believe they have contributed in certain disciplines or certain fields. There's nothing wrong with that. But even then, I think the usage of that doctorate have to be discriminate. I mean, you cannot just simply use it anywhere. So only in events that is pertaining to that particular university, you can use the word doctorate. For instance, I got my honorary doctorate from the University Kebangsaan Malaysia, your alma mater. So basically, I don't use that doctorate, but whenever there is a function at the university or at the certain faculty, they might use the name. They used that doctorate. I think this is again the question that we have always been discussing. This is the conversation that needs to be put forth, and I think we have to deal with this because we are talking about fake dato, we are talking about fake doctorates, that kind of thing. So basically, it is part of the entire culture that we have to look at. I think the whole value system have to be relooked. And you see, and especially now, because people associate Datukship or titles with certain respectability, honor, and acceptance by the society. So we are obsessed with that. So basically, as I said earlier, it is part of the Malaysian dream. People want to be called a Dato. You see, you have come to a stage whereby if you go to any hotel, the valet people there, if you are of certain age and you drive a certain car, they will call you a Dato. If you are not offended. But if you are and they don't call you a Dato, some people might get offended. So basically, they will call anyone Dato, in major hotels. So we have come to that stage, and I think we have come to that stage. And of course, you see, some of the sultans themselves have come out with a very strong statement about this, because I think as I said, I believe the system has nothing wrong with the system, but of course, the entire process of awarding or conferring those titles have to be relooked. And I think most states, I think they have taken into consideration the views from people. And I mean, the discussion that have been going for basically for the last many years and months.
Thye, last word from you.
Yeah, I think in conclusion, I think what I would like to emphasize is this, that what is important at the end of the day, I think is really the question of honor, dignity, and integrity. And I think these things are something that must not be sacrificed just for the sake of getting a title. And also to those who may be having some kind of inferiority, just a complex, there may be some, they may suffer from inferiority complex. This is a syndrome where they feel that, I mean, they must have a title, just in order to make them feel confident and so on. So I think this is something that must be discarded, I think, for the simple reason that, what is really important is this, title does not mean anything. If at all it is bestowed upon a person, and if that person is involved in a crime or in a criminal activity and so on, I think he will be the last one to get most hurt, in the sense that if it comes out in the media, I'm sure, I think he'll be cursed and he'll be condemned and so on. So I think very important for everybody to bear in mind that I think at the end of the day, I think we just do our best. We do our best to serve the country no matter in what the profession we are. And then if at all the government feels that we have done something great, we have done something useful for the country, they want to recognize us. Therefore, I mean, we just wait, for it. And if it comes, then we just accept it. As JJ has said, I mean, it is a Malaysian dream. People like to dream that they will be able to achieve it. So, but the important thing is this: let it not be done at the expense of integrity, honor, and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri Thye and Tan Sri Johan Jaaffar. We must continue to pursue this particular narrative of ours to ensure that there are only quality number of Dato and Dato Sris, because we do not want to have another entry in the book of records that Malaysia has the number of most titled population in the world. So on that, thank you very much for joining me in this discussion. We hope to see these two gentlemen again. If we have contributed very valuable inputs. Thank you very much. And please like, share, and follow RealChunWai. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.